In three, two, one. Welcome back to the Author's Corner. I am here with a longtime friend, Dr. Paulette Harper. You've probably seen her here over the years, and she's back. New projects, got a conference coming up, and we're gonna talk about all that. So, without further ado, how are you doing today?
Hello, hello, my friend. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about being on your show here to talk with your audience. I'm doing really good here in Northern California.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're one of those that always have a standing invitation. So, you can always come back. So that is never a problem. I'm glad you are back. So, I want to start off backtracking for a second. Um, because that way my audience can get to know you a little better. And briefly, tell me first, how did you get started in writing?
Yeah, so I started writing coming through a divorce. And so from that divorce, I started penning what that transition looked like. So, backstory, I was married to a pastor for 23 years and went through a divorce, a very hard divorce. And I was in a real dark place during that time. I had met him when I was 14. And so we were high school sweethearts. So it was a lot of emotional trauma that I had gone through. And so during that whole process, and being a first lady, co-pastor, that was another layer that I had to deal with as well. So it was the emotional and it was the spiritual. And so during that healing process, I was just nudged to write a book, and I didn't know about writing. And at that time, I didn't know a author. I didn't know a author, and so just the nudge from the Holy Spirit to write my book, and I'm like, what how do I do that? What do I do? And so I started writing my very first book. That was then. This is now. This Broken Vessel Restored, and you can still pick it up on Amazon. And that really kicked off my journey to writing. And from that very first book, other people began to come to me and ask me to coach them. Now, I just wanted to write a book, and that was it. I wasn't thinking about coaching people or even writing a second book, but God had other plans for me. And so when they start pulling on my knowledge and my skills, then I accommodated them and hosted my very first workshop. There was about 16 people at that workshop. It was a kickoff for me, and I began to see how my story it was bigger than me just going through a divorce. There was something else that God was doing in me, and storytelling became part of my life and bringing other people along. And so over the years, it has just kept evolving and writing and coaching and those things. But it really came out of the pain that I had gone through with that divorce.
Well, you're gonna have to forgive me just for a second because I'm gonna brag on you for a second. I've known Dr. Harper since 2012, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And when she talked about, see, she's being mild when she said she's been doing coaching and everything. She has done coaching. She has done anthologies. The number of authors that she's helped, I mean, I can't give you the number, but it is immeasurable. You have helped a lot of authors. And I'm telling you what, you may not see it, but we're looking at you. We see you. So just let you
Oh,
know, you get your flowers today. I'm making sure you get your flowers today.
I want to thank you for that. Because there are times when you don't know if anybody is really, seeing what you're doing, and so, you're right. God has really blessed me. And from writing and coaching, and like you mentioned, my anthologies, and I've written 23 books, and so 13 or 14 of them are anthologies, and so I have really coached like over 250 first-time best-selling authors in my anthologies. And so I'm just so grateful to God that He took the pain and He turned something so magnificent into something that was just not for me, but it was for other people as well. And so I'm really grateful for the journey. I'm really grateful for even the experience of going through the divorce, because had I not gone through it, I wouldn't have a story. Had I not gone through it, I wouldn't meet the wonderful people that I've met on this journey, such as yourself and other authors as well. And so, God can just really take something that was so devastating and just flip it, and turn it into something so powerful and so golden that you just sit back and say, wow, look what the Lord has done.
Well, see, a lot of people, and I'm just going to say this. I'll talk about this later in my mental health Monday. But when people think divorce or breakups are the end, they're really sometimes are just the beginning. And it's like people say, God's not done with me yet. So, and here's the prime example right here. God was not done with you. You had a lot of work to do. You still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I do agree with you in what you just said. I mean, and I can attest to that because when I was going through the divorce, I actually thought that very same thing, that my life was over. Because I had built I mean, I met him when I was 14, and then I got divorced at 40. And so for me, it was trying to deal with, not being married anymore, not being in ministry anymore with this particular person. And so I did think that life was over. I did want to end my life. It had gotten that bad for me. And so I'm just really grateful that, God pulled me out of all of that. And I had to go to therapy and I had to really seek, help in that regard as to my mental and my emotional condition because it was not in a good space. And so, when you have been with somebody for so long and you've invested your time and you've had children by them and ministry and you've built a business, and then when that is severed, then your foundation gets, uprooted. And that was really what it was about me, uprooting my foundation and trying to rebuild it in a totally different way, all by myself. But I knew that God was still with me in that process.
You know, you I I've had this phrase that I normally tell people, I call people, and I can actually give you this name. Now, I usually call people walking testimonies, and you're what they call a walking testimony, and I love that because you are such an inspiration to others. So,
Thank you.
let you know that. So, I want to get into now. So let's get to the present. What are you working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm working on a couple of things. Last year God told me to start building, and so I've been building, and that was ministry wise. So I'm working on a reset conference. This will be my second one in January the 10th, and so the reset encounter, it is for women who need a reset, women who need to realign, to release for the new year. And so I'm working on that. I have an anthology that I'm working on as well called When She Finally Let Go. It should be released in November or December of this year. And so those two things I have going on, and probably in 2026, I'll probably do a devotional, maybe. It just kind of depends. But those are the two things that I'm working on right now that's really keeping me preoccupied.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, what motivates you to do your projects?
Yeah, you know what? What motivates me is I love empowering women. And I have always done that. Even when I was married, I was over the women's ministry, and I did conferences and workshops, and and bringing women together, and and preaching with the women and over the women and teaching them. And so that has always been in me. That's been my DNA, and I've always done that. And so for a while now, I just kind of, I was doing my thing with the authors and the coaching and whatnot, and not doing too much ministry. And then last year, I really got the nudge, from God to just really start building again when it came to ministry and the women. And so from that, I came up with the name called Build Her Kingdom Women. And so I have been building women, and that encompasses the Reset Encounter. I have a Sisters with the Mantle prayer brunch that I do. A few weeks ago, we just did we just did Daughters in the Park women, and we were all dressed in pink. And so I'm building women. And I found that empowering women empowers me. And so we get together and I impart the word in them and pray over them and just really want to see them healed, released, so that they can walk in the fullness in whom God has called them to be. And so my motivation really does come for when I see the women and they come and they want, more of God, more of the word, and God uses me in that area. That really does motivate me. And then also, I know that I still have work that needs to be done here, and that keeps me motivated as well.
Okay. I want to get serious for a second, 'cause that's beautiful. That's very beautiful. You know how I am on Facebook when it comes to the political. So you already know. So my question is, when you live in a world that's so misogynistic, that does not respect women, that feels that you're too loud, you're too ghetto, you're too this, you're too that. How does your ministry get rid of all the noise?
That's a good question. Getting, rid of all the noise. Sometimes, one, you got to really know who you are in Christ. And when you know who you are in Christ, you don't let the noise dictate to you or your own movement. You don't let other people tell you how to live, what to say, what to do, what to post. You don't let other people tell you to do that. Why? Because you're confident in who you are, and you're confident in who you believe, and you're confident in what you believe. And so for me, I'm political as well. I take a stance on when I see injustice. I take a stance when I see that there is racism. I call it out, and so I'm going to always do that. And I've lost, followers and whatnot, and I'm okay with that, because one of the things that for me, and to have a voice, I'll never. And this probably comes from when I was going through my divorce. I was muted a lot because I didn't feel that my voice had any more effect because of what I had gone through in my divorce. And so now, when you get unmuted after being muted for so long, you don't really care what other people say about you. You don't really care how they feel about you. And so when it comes to politics and how I view things and what I see and what I perceive to be my own truth, I can speak my own truth. And I'll go back and forth with you, and you can't convince me that I'm wrong because that's my experience, And so, when I'm ministering to the women, and if they bring out, I had one of a very young sister come up to me about the very same thing that's going on now, and she shared with me her burden. And I told her, "You're absolutely correct. You are right to feel that way, because what you see is actual. This is what we see. This is what we know, and you can't erase that, And so these things are real, and I won't back down from posting something that I know is fact, and I know a lot of times I do it because I know I agitate people. I do it
Good.
because I know they're mad at me, but I don't care. I'm going to do it anyways. Get mad. I don't care.
And it's funny, and I tell people all the time, even speaking as a man, sometimes sometimes we can be horrible. But the problem is, if you can make us feel uncomfortable, that's great. That means you're actually getting your point across.
Yeah, yeah.
So make us feel uncomfortable. Make us feel, and when I say uncomfortable, people, what I mean is, again, like I said in my earlier question, we're misogynistic. We want to control marriage. We want to control the ladies in our lives. We want to do this. We want to do that. We don't need to be doing that. So I'm happy that we have someone out here that is actually giving the right message out. So
Yeah,
I'm loving that.
and I think too that you have to, I mean, of course, everything there is a balance in what you do. Nobody can ever um, say to me that, what I'm teaching and preaching when it comes to the word, that I'm doing it in error and whatnot, because your opinion are really a part for me, my opinion and who I am as a human, and as a child of God. Those are things that I can never let anybody allow their opinion of me to get me to shrink who I am. I won't shrink, and so for that, then, I do have a voice and I want my voice to be heard because God gave me my voice, and so I'm entitled to share what my opinion is, and whether you like it or not, it's okay. I'm not going to try to change you because that's your opinion, but please respect me enough not to try to change me and mine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's cool. I love that. See, you and I, we need to do more interviews like this. I love this. Anyway, and I was saying, so you have your ministry, every woman's ministry, um, and you said you had a conference coming up next year.
Yes,
Tell me
I
a little bit about
do.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So the reset. Encounter, it is really for women who, we every year we're either doing some New Year's resolution, we're setting all these goals that we want to do in the new year. And so what I decided was, instead of making New Year's resolution, let's just do a reset. Let's just do a reset. I mean, we can do them in the middle of the year, whenever time you want to. But I have, for me in the ministry, we're doing it every year, and so we're really coming together and bringing women from the Bay who want to really reset. And what is that? That's getting realigned. That is getting reassess. That's getting released. That's getting, you releasing things to receive things. And so it is resetting and getting back into alignment to what you're called to do here on the earth. Because in the middle of getting your instructions and your assignments, from God, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the year. There's a lot of trials and testings. There's a lot of, death. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of shifting that goes on. There's a lot of transitions that happen. There is marriages that may fail. I mean, there's so many things that go on from in between a year. And so for the reset, it's really to reevaluate your life, reassess where you are, and really get equipped and released so for in 2026. And so every year that's my mandate to do, to offer the opportunity for women to come and get reset for 2026. And for everybody, that looks different just depending on where, the ladies are. But the goal is to really release and get realigned so that you can move into, the purpose for that year that you've been called to serve.
Perfect, perfect. So will that be online, in person, or how are you, or is it still in the early stages?
It's going to be live. It's going to be live, and so it's going to be held in Antioch, California, and so it's a full about 3 hours of a brunch and ministry in the word, and games and vendors and all of that. And so it's a conference where women can gather, and network and really get ministered to, and also really set themselves up in a good position to achieve what they need to achieve for 2026.
Perfect, perfect. If you give me the information for that, I'll teach that on the show as well.
Thank you.
So if you get information, just let me know.
Okay, I will.
So now I want to talk about your latest anthology. Tell me what
Yeah.
that's about.
Yeah, so when she finally let go, so I'm working with a group of ladies. The book is about, all of my books are about transition, and so when she finally let go, these are stories of women who reached a breaking point, and they've decided that they are going to surrender, whatever surrender is, and letting go. And so these ladies have gone through grief. They have gone through really discovering themselves, dysfunctional families. They have gone through, releasing toxic relationships, words that were spoken over them and whatnot. And so these ladies have really shared the rawness of their journey, of their stories. And so when I'm coaching, one of the things that I love to do with my authors is to stretch my authors, and they will tell you, I will stretch you, And so with me and the stories that I publish through my anthologies, I don't want to write just stories that make a reader feel good. Oh, that's a great story. No, I want the reader to read these stories and find themselves in the story, because that's where the transformation can come, when they can see themselves in the story and they can identify with what the reader is saying, and so when they're writing, I push them to go deeper. Tell me a little bit more about that particular thing. Why did you feel that way? Why did you respond that way and whatnot, And so they have been stretched, but they answered the call, because I know that it's in them and they just need somebody to pull that out. And I'm all for that. So these stories are very relational. They are transformational. Their stories are talking to the readers, talking to these sisters who these stories are for. And so it's gonna be released in November, early part of December, and it's gonna be a real good read for women who really want to let go. And what does that look like for women who are there?
Mhm. Your coaching sessions. Explain to me how your coaching sessions work.
Yeah, so when I'm doing one-on-one, I'll do that, and then I'll go with the authors when I'm doing my anthologies. But when I'm doing one-on-one coaching, and that's for people who want to write solo books. And so it's a 6-month program that I do. And so the very first session, it is about mindset. I coach them and teach them about mindset, because a lot of times we don't achieve what our goals are because our minds are so messed up. And so we tackle mindset and how to get through the mindset, especially when you're writing a story and you're working with me for 6 whole months. So I give the authors 90 days to write the story. And what I do that I think is a little bit different than other coaches, and maybe there possibly could be other coaches out there as well, but I teach and I train my authors and my clients how not to need a publisher. I teach them how to publish themselves.
I love you. Go ahead.
Okay.
You
so I so I teach you I teach you and give you the tools and the strategies and the know-how and the system and the blueprint on how to publish yourself. So the 90 days is what I work with you about your story. And so some people come to me and they don't have a story yet. They know they want to talk about themselves. They want to do a memoir, so they know that part. But how do I organize it, and how do I get this on paper? And so I take them through that process. So after we get through the mindset, we go through the process of doing our outline, and I usually through one session is enough for me to pull out about 10 chapters, at least an outline that can kind of guide them on how to go about writing their story. And so one of the things that when I'm discussing their stories with them and those that want to write, a memoir, I try to kind of tell them, think about the end result of your book. Because your story about you can be interesting to you and your family and your friends, but what about 10 years from now? What about 5 years from now? Is that same story going to be, is it still going to pull in new readers? So think about the end result. Do you want your story to solve a problem? Think about your story solving a problem, because I can tell you that when you write a book and your story solves a problem, there'll be people who will pay you to solve that problem. So I try to get them into a different kind of mindset about their story. And so, I give them the 90 days to write it, and I give them assignments so they know that, okay, in between coaching with me, a session with me, I have to write my 2 chapters. So this is how I keep people accountable. And that's one of the things that I've found with authors, that they don't have accountability. And that's why it takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years to write a book, because you're not accountable to yourself. And so the next 90 days, I teach them about the editing phase of it. I introduce them to an editor, to a graphic designer, to the formatter. I show them how to upload. I show them how to get their ISBN number. So I give them everything that they need to set up for themselves to be their own publisher. And I guarantee you that if they do what I ask them to do in 60 days, or in 6 months, they will have a book in their hands and also the blueprint to be able to do rinse and repeat. Now that's how I do my solo sessions.
I love that rinse and repeat. I love that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, rinse and repeat. And so, and then when I'm doing my author coaching for my anthologies, it's a little bit different. I don't go in all those elements, but when it comes to, creating their story, yeah, I offer my clients, all the authors, an opportunity to do a one-on-one session with me, because I want to make sure that you writing the right story that fits the vision of this book. And so we do a one-on-one session. I hear their heart. I hear the story that they want to write, and I guide them to picking that one particular story that they want to share in the book. And show them how to write it. I give them templates. I give them samples of a chapter. I give them samples of a bio. I give them all the guidelines. And so you're going to get everything you need when you work with me, okay? You're going to get everything you need. And so when they're, writing their story, before it gets over to an editor, I look at it. I tell them, send me your chapter. I want to give you some feedback. I want to hear what you're saying. I want to make sure that you're okay with what you're saying and you on point. And so I read it, and a couple of times I have to send it back to the authors and say, this not it, because you're all over the place, okay? And give them time to fix it and whatnot. And so when I'm doing with working with the anthology, that piece right there is so important, because they're learning how to really write a story, and they stick with what the theme is and what the idea about that story is. And they will see. I already know the end of this anthology. I already know what the results are going to be. They just don't know, and they trust me in this process. And so, I go through the editing with them, and then now we're just about done with the editing piece of it, and now we're going to be pre-selling the book, and everything is in phases until we get ready to do the ebook release and do our pre-sale and our Amazon campaign for bestseller.
I love that. So they get to be a part of every facet of the process
Yes.
up until from beginning to end. I love
Yeah, they
that.
do. Yeah.
And like, and see, I love it because it's worth the price. You're there all the time. You're always in communication. I'm loving that. So,
Yeah.
like I said, and again, like I said, she's been doing this for years. So get with her, please. Well, definitely.
Yeah.
So my next question is, what? Tell me about some of your favorite books that you've done.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the anthologies that we did was entitled The Breaking Point. And The Breaking Point was endorsed by Les Brown.
Ooh, I
Okay.
remember
So
that.
so that experience was something to just really it was amazing experience how we got connected with Les Brown. It was on a call and me and all the authors, I take the authors on the speaking ops, and so we were on a speaking call and the host, her and Les Brown were great friends. And before I knew it, Les Brown was on the phone talking to me about, the breaking point, and he was going to endorse the book. And it was
Now,
so amazing.
I mean to cut you off. I do have to say this. I've been a huge Les Brown fan since, and I'm aging myself since I was 13 years old. And I saw him on a PBS special when he was endorsing his. Oh yeah, I'm not even gonna get into all that, but I've been a huge Les Brown fan. So when I heard that he endorsed your book, I was like, "There she go." But go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, and that in itself was so amazing because the authors was coming on the call. They didn't know what was going on, and they're like, "What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "I'm talking to Les Brown," and they were just floored. They was just so floored, and that was such an amazing experience. And so that was one of the things that has happened, and so that book was entitled, The Breaking Point. And I think maybe my first book that I did with an anthology was entitled For Such a Time as This. And I think I may have maybe about 20 authors or so that was in that book. And, when you are, coaching, that number of authors and all of them, they want a session with me. And I'm for that, because I want to make sure that you comfortable writing, because a lot of times they're first time authors and so they're unsure and whatnot, And so, that particular book, For Such a Time as This, was something that for me, it was really kind of thinking about what I was doing at that current moment, what, situation, trial, test, victory that I was attaining during that time, and what did that mean for me? And so I think those two books really highlight, for my anthologies. Now I don't know if you know this, I have written a Christian fiction novel called Secret Places Revealed.
Uh-oh. I need to know what this is. I need to
Okay.
know. I need to know this. Yeah.
so so yeah, I wrote a Christian fiction novel. It was actually my third book that I wrote, and so it's a romance, and so it takes place here in the Bay Area, and it's about a brother named Aaron Blackman and Simone, and so they get together. She was living in New York, and so she moved to the Bay Area. And so he was a very thriving attorney. He has his own. He was an attorney, and so She went for a job interview, is how they came together. And so Secret Places Revealed talks about two individuals who hide, secrets about themselves, struggles that they've gone through in life, um, past experiences that really continues kind of haunt them in their future, and they had to come to grips with those past experiences in order for them even to have a relationship, with one another. And so, Secret Places Revealed, I won Best Inspirational uh, spiritual romance in and for that book. So it's an award-winning novel. And so check it out on Amazon and read it and let me know what you think about it.
Oh, I
Those of
will.
you, yeah, yeah.
I'm doing a
So
review on it.
yeah, please do, please do, please do. So that was my first novel that I did, and just I wanted to write that book because at this time I was reading other Christian fiction, romance stories, and I'm like, oh, I would like to write fiction, and I started dabbling in it, and I thought, oh, well, it's so different than writing nonfiction. You know, when you're writing fiction, if you've written fiction before, you the writer, you the character. You got to find
Yep.
a plot, you got to find the tension in it, you got to find them coming back together, you got to find all of these people. Oh my god, it's a whole beast.
I'm
But I
loving it.
really enjoyed it, and so yeah.
Awesome,
And
awesome. Actually, that was going to be a question I was going to ask later. Have you ever thought about writing fiction? But now that you've written fiction, how does it feel to actually have one, to actually have written one, much less have one come out and win an award for it?
it was so surreal, really. It was one, you know, when you're writing in that genre, for me, it was, I would hear, oh, the characters speak to me. I would hear that from different authors. Oh, the characters speak to me. Thinking, well, they ain't been speaking to me. Like, well, they're not speaking to me yet.
Oh, they will, trust me, they will. I'm
And
sorry.
you're right. No, and you're absolutely right. The more that I started writing about, different characters and scenes, they did begin to just really speak to me and kind of govern the story. But I do want to bring something out in that book, Secret Places Revealed. So the cover on the book, the model name is AC Brown. Now, I did not know him at the time when that cover was done. So what had happened was one day on Facebook, somebody saw the cover and they knew the model. And so they tagged him in the post. And so I see, all these comments going on about this, my cover. And I'm like, what's up? And so the model began to chime into the comments. He said, hey, I'm this AC Brown. I'm the model on your book cover. And I'm like, well, I'm Paulette Harper. I'm the author of the book. And so it was just amazing. It was just, oh my God, I couldn't have planned that myself. And so from that, relationship with him, he allowed me to interview him. And so his character is Aaron in my book. And so there are some characteristics about him and some comments that he made in the book that actually did come from the actual model AC himself. And so being able to do that, it was like, oh my God. And he helped promote it with his audience and whatnot. So that book really was a tremendous blessing to me. It was I won an award. It was right after I had, gone through. I had gotten my house here, and so I had just gone through a fire in my apartment. So I was in another transition and whatnot, and so I found that when I'm in a lot of transitions, that's when I do a lot of writing. And so that's really how that book, came about, and I always remember meeting AC Brown and what that relationship did for me and him, and him being an actual person that I did meet.
Yeah, that's beautiful. See, I love that. On the side note, first, let me say this. First, let me ask you this: are there any more books in the future? Fiction books, actually. Thanks, my best.
Yeah, I have some. I've started on some. And I've actually been working on some things. And so I'm going to say yes. I am going to say, yeah, I have to get back into that mode. It's just like in any author, you have to keep writing, whether you're doing fiction, nonfiction, poetry, whatever it is that you're writing, you have to keep writing. And I have been writing nonfiction for so long and, tapping into that fiction side of me. That's really going to take a mindset transformation to going back to the storyline, the plotting, the characters, and getting myself reacquainted once again with that format on how to go about doing a fiction novel.
Right. I want to go back for just a second because something you said really struck me, which is actually very inspiring. It seems like anytime you reach, shall I say, a challenge in your life, you fight back by writing more. You fight back by putting words to paper.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And so, is this one thing that you also motivate authors to do?
You know, I never looked at it like that for an author. I just think about at the times when I'm writing, and what's going on in my own personal life, and so I think if we just really, take a moment and assess when, our writing mojo kicks in, what's going on in our lives, that's surrounding all of that, because writing, of course, is so therapeutic, and so, I think for anybody, they can just kind of look back and think, at what points are we writing? Is it when something is going on and you're scribbling and you're writing down, what's happening, and then you're going to put it in in book form and whatnot. But that's for myself, I'm always thinking about that.
I think another thing you're always thinking about, you always think of others when you're writing or when you're motivating or when it's always about other people. And I love that. Um, how does that, I get, here's a question I need to ask you. When you're doing your workshops or you're wrapping up a big project, an anthology project, how does that feel when others come back and say, "Hey, look at this. Thank you. This is wonderful. Is what I wanted." How does that feel?
Yeah, it really feels so satisfying for me. Um, Especially when I'm working with some first time authors who's just not sure about how this thing gonna pan out, and they may not even be sure about me coaching them, and so when I can get them to the desired result, and a lot of them, their result is, I want to be a number one Amazon bestseller, and that's their desired result, and I push to get them there, and when they get that, it is so rewarding. One, because my whole idea about coaching is transformational. It's never a transaction for me. It's always about transformational, and how can I assist you in that transformation. And so when I can help, my the authors get to that point, they set goals, they have an aspiration to achieve something, and I can meet that as their coach, and they see the reward and the strategies that I'm showing them how to go about it, and they see the results that they're receiving, and they come back or they say, "Oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you." I mean, it really does mean a lot to me. Um, I had one of the co-authors now, um I stretched her to write differently in her chapter, and just go a little bit deeper, go a little bit deeper, think about this, why is this, and so she came back and she said, um I've never really had a coach to coach me like you did. I've never had somebody to really stretch me like you did. And she said, and I went, and I've been in other anthologies, and I went back and looked at my chapters, and I'm like, ooh, And I said, oh, well. I said, but you learn, you learn.
I'm I'm going to um I'm going to get dark for just a second here. And I may sway your head up a little bit, but I've got to tell people this. A couple of years ago, I was in a dark place. Um, not going to explain, not going to go into detail, but this lady right here that I'm interviewing now, um, I interview a lot of authors, but a lot of authors are really good friends, but you can't get no more friends than this lady here. But I was in my dark place. This woman here stayed on my behind. She's a pastor, I'm not gonna say the word, but she stayed on my behind to make sure I was okay. And she didn't have to do that. She had so much she had to do. I just want to thank you for that.
Wow.
Because I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You know, thank you. I could identify that dark place because I was there before. I saw me, you know. I know how life can be lifing. I know how things can come at you and bombard you from every direction. I lived in that, and I was in that dark place. And so I never want anybody to live in that. I never want anybody to think that life is over because it's never over. It's never over. And so when that was going on, not on my watch, not on my watch, and so that's why even Facebook, IG, I know these social platforms can be not the best just because the content, but when you can really seek out genuine relationships and friendships with people, and it's more than what can I do for you if you can do it for me? It's not even like that, I'm always at ministry mode, even in coaching. I'm always in ministry mode, and so whenever I see anybody in that needs prayer, that needs to be encouraged, that needs a word, I'm all in for that, and I'm going to do what I need to do because that is what ministry is about, and I'm going to always be about that. And so, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. You even being okay with me, just coming in and speaking to you in those areas because I've been there, yeah.
You're beautiful for that, and I really appreciate you. And I'm gonna always appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
All right. So now I made everybody cry. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right. Where can we get your anthologies? Where can we get your books?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is pauletteharper.com. You can check me out on Amazon as well. And when you go on my website, you'll see other services and offers that I'm doing there as well. So check me out. Grab a copy of the book and or the books. Grab a copy of the books. Do a review on them. Post them on Amazon. I'd be glad to. I really appreciate the reviews that I get as well.
Awesome, awesome. And how often do you coach?
I with my one-on-one coaching, I try to at least do have two clients a year for the coaching because they're 6 months, and then I also do a 90-day program as well. And so that 90-day program is for people who already have a manuscript, but they're at that stage of, oh, I need an editor. I don't know what to do with this manuscript. I want to learn how to publish it. So I do, a 90-day program as well. And so, I have, spots open for that definitely for 2026. So if you're looking for a coach, for one on, for your solo book, one-on-one, I'm definitely available. And then I'll be doing an author call next year as well for those who just want to, be in an anthology.
Will that also be on your website as well?
Yeah, so on my website, there is a link to get on my waiting list for my anthologies. There is a post or there's a link also for the different, my one-on-one coaching and then also for my 90-day program.
Awesome, awesome. I like that. I like that. So, how can we get to know you as an author?
Check me out on Facebook. I do a lot of posting on Facebook. I have a Facebook group as well called Build Her Kingdom Women. And
Mhm.
so, people can find out more about me on social media, tracking me there, seeing what my posts are, what I'm talking about. They can get a feel of me on social media.
Awesome, awesome. Um, Scenario real quick, for the coaching. You get someone who really wants to write. Cause I'll get a lot of these I'll get a lot of these when I help writers, when I help new writers. I want to write, but I just feel I'm not there. But I really want to write. How do you get someone who's actually on the fence? Or do you get that often?
Yeah, I mean, especially, especially with the anthologies. A lot of writers don't feel that one, they have a story, they're not qualified, they don't know how, and that's where, the coaching comes in. And so, everybody has a story, but everybody, may not necessarily need to publish it, unless you're really going to be the author. And I'm talking about just not writing. I tell my clients, if you're going to self-publish, don't make your book look like you self-published. I mean, that comes from the
It makes
editing,
sense.
cover, everything. You can self-publish and it can be a very quality, book. And so when an author and when somebody comes to me and they're unsure, but they really want to write, I try to coach them through that and what that looks like, and then too, when they're at that place, I try to introduce them to just writing the chapter and they can just get a feel of how to write. And then also it takes, when you're in an anthology, it takes the burden and the pressure off of writing 10, 15, 20 chapters, however you're going to have in your book, where you're just focusing on writing one chapter.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that. Um, so one last thing. I always give my authors the final word. They can give advice, they can give shout outs, whatever you want to say, the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, HD, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a privilege, an honor to be on your platform. Love what you're doing as well, giving authors and, coaches, everybody an opportunity to be on. And so, as it relates to, writing books, I want to speak to those of you who have a book in you and you don't really know how to go about doing it. Let me tell you something. You don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to Google it. You don't have to, go on YouTube University. Seek after a genuine coach who has credibility, integrity, and somebody who has a track record of helping other authors go through writing, So seek after a coach because a coach really is going to make you accountable to, the whole process. And so if you have a book, seek after a coach. And like I said, you don't have to do this by yourself. And then those of you who are, we're in a different, so in such a different sphere of of changes in life and shifts that's going on in our world and whatnot. And so I just want to encourage those of you who are, looking at social media and the news and everything that's going on. Let me just encourage you that, God is always going to take care of his people. And no matter what is going on in this world, know this that he's going to provide what you need and he'll never forsake you. He's always with you. And even when there are other people who may be going through, even in shutdowns, God is still going to provide, And so I just want to encourage you that this place right here is not our permanent space.
I love that. I love that. I know I gave you the final word, but I do want to say this real quick, and you give me your opinion on it. For new authors out there, um, I understand. I understand there's so much going on financially, but sometimes you do have to invest in your own work. You can't really edit your own books. You can't really in fact, I encourage you never to edit your own books.
Yes.
You're always gonna need someone, but
Yeah.
Dr. Paulette Harper is someone that you can trust. I trust her. She has turned out many great authors. You can look at her anthologies. I mean, you can always ask me. I can send you to a website, and there you go. So,
Yeah, let me add something to what you just said, and you're absolutely correct. You have to invest in your goal and your vision, and that means, making sure that you do get an editor, that you do not edit yourself. Okay, you do get a professional editor. You do get somebody that's going to do a real nice book cover for you. You do the necessary research that you're just not putting something together. And so all those elements do, they're necessary for you to really be that standout author that you really want to be. So yeah, you definitely have to invest and stop looking for discounts.
mhm.
Stop looking for discounts, pay the price, save your coins, discipline yourself. Don't go eat, don't get your nails done, don't do something and save your money so that you can invest to get the book in the quality that you want.
And one last thing before we shut this down, I also want to say too, if you invest right the first time,
Yeah,
you always save money over the long run.
that's good. That's
So
good. That's true.
yes.
Yeah, I that is so true. I know somebody who found that out the hard way.